Well, hey there. And we'll wait here for just a minute to get things settled in and dialed in. And I've been playing with some new stuff in my studio, and so hopefully we'll get rocking and rolling here shortly. I want to welcome you all to a new episode of Monday Mastery live at 6 Central Standard Time. So if you're watching live, welcome. If you're watching later, welcome to you too. Anyway, it's been a crazy couple of months, and it was good to take a break for a few weeks, actually a couple of months. That time. Oops, let me get this over here. That time has kind of flown by pretty quickly. So I'll share some fun news with you all at the end of today. But today, just as I've been working over the last 2.5 months on this project, one thing keeps popping out with the subject matter. And what I wanted to, the question I posed today is, how do you view dating? Is it fun for you? Or is it, let me change up something here real quick. I'm missing comments. Hey, Addie, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. And Shar, thanks for joining in. Glad you're back, and thank you both. It's good to be back. The question I posed earlier was yeah, how do you view dating? Do you find it fun? Do you find it drudgery? And hey, Teresa, thanks for joining in. And that has a big impact on your success in dating. And Teresa says she views dating as hard, and and I understand that, Teresa. There's a lot to dating, and it can be. And hey, Kim, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. And let's see. I'm getting quite a few responses here. Addie says it can be fun for a while. So let me just pop this up here real quick. Addie says it can be fun for a while, but it can get old at times. Oh, I totally get that, Addie. I totally get that. Dino says, hey, Dino, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. It's been fun and a little interesting. It's not like we were when we were teenagers. Yeah, isn't that the truth? And Kim says it's drudgery. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, Gary, thanks for joining in. And Addie says, when it feels like drudgery, that's when I take a break. And that's, man, you guys are covering all of this for me. So I'm just going to sit here and ask a couple of questions, and you can pop in and you can take care of each other. Teresa says it is fun till the true them shows up, and I get that. And that's let me scroll back down here, scroll back up here a little bit to see where. And David, tell me. I want to shoot back to David for a little bit. Tell me, you said it's been fun and a little interesting. What do you find fun and interesting about it? And it's quite true that it's not like when we were teenagers. So many things have changed. Hopefully, we've gotten a little smarter, but sometimes that's interesting. That just threw another thought at me here. That I've been reading. I actually reread a book that I read about 6 or 7 years ago called How We Love, and it talks about how we're imprinted and from childhood into our love styles, and this is different from love languages. Your love style, and it's a very complex book, and I'm not even going to do justice, but it's there are 4 or 5 or 6 different love styles, and it basically it's how we react to other people when we're in a relationship. Now, for me, and if you want to get the book, it's by Milan and Kay Yurkovich, and they're therapists, and it's a Christian based book, and I highly, 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 highly recommend it. I have it in hard copy, I have it in Audible, so I just finished it up this week, in Audible, and when I head up to Michigan next, later this month, I'll be listening to it again because there was so much good information. Basically, what I've determined is, and I need to listen to it more thoroughly, but I have an avoider love style that because of my upbringing, there were things in my childhood that they asked, and I hadn't even remembered, but they asked a couple of questions, and they asked, "Do you remember your parents nurturing you at any time when you were a child?" And I had to go back, and it came out that no, I don't remember my parents nurturing me, in to any great extent. The one one thing that came to mind was that when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I remember laying in bed. It was probably midnight or so, and I was laying in bed and I was crying because I had an earache, and I was calling for my mom, calling for my mom, calling. Finally, she came, and our house was so small. She just yelled from across the hallway, "Go back to sleep. You'll be fine in the morning." But there was no nurturing. She did finally come in and lay down with me for a little bit, and but then she went back to bed, and nothing had changed. It was just trying to talk me back to sleep. That's all. So anyway, but yeah, things. So, oh man, that just really went down a rabbit hole in the wrong direction real quickly. But if you have an opportunity, read that book. It is really, really helpful, and it helps describe how we react to other people when we're in a relationship. But back to David, there's things have changed dramatically. We didn't have when we were, and I don't know how old you are, but I'm 65. When I used to want to go for a date, we'd have to call by Wednesday for a date on Saturday. And we had the old rotary phone, and you'd have to dial the number, and you were attached to the wall, or our phone was attached to the wall, so you couldn't go anywhere. Our phone had about a 3 or 4 foot cord, and so if you were having a personal conversation, our phone was in the living room, or in the kitchen. So everybody in the living room was right around the corner. You couldn't have a personal conversation. So yeah, things, again, you've got texting, emails, online dating. So it is just changed so dramatically. Let me catch. Hey, Glenn, thanks for joining in. And Deborah, thanks for joining in. And it shows that there's an emoji, David, but I can't see what the emoji is. So anyway. Let's go to Glenn. Glenn says, "I didn't know who my last girlfriend was till she left, and her sis let me know who she was." A shocker. And there's, I wish more family and friends and relatives would step up when we're dating somebody and say, this is probably, she's not a healthy person, or he's not a healthy person to be dating. But nobody wants to offend the family member or the friend that could be the problem child. So let's see. Addie says, as it should be the way. Ask me by when. Oh, I see. Okay, ask me by Wednesday, or it's a no go for me. I don't want to be last minute thought, and that is so true. And I was several years ago. I was talking with a young man. Oh gosh, he was. I don't think he was more than 30. He was maybe late 20s, and I was sharing that story about how we'd have to call on Wednesday for a date on Saturday, and and he was just shocked. He says, "Oh my gosh, we give somebody a text a couple of hours in advance and say, hey, a bunch of us are going here. Come and join us." And it's there's no time to prepare. It's just such a informal such an informal thing these days, at least for the millennials. And I'm more of a traditional guy, and I teach traditional values. I teach guys to be gentlemen, to open doors, to walk on the street side of the sidewalk, to protect the lady. Guys, and a lot of you guys, hopefully not, but some of you guys may think that you should split the ticket when you go for dinner or drinks or whatever. And I'm a firm believer that if you're asking her out, if you're serious about her, you should be paying until you're in a relationship. And I know that's expensive for the guys, but there are ways around that. You don't have to go for this big fancy dinner. You don't have to go to a fancy concert, an expensive concert. You can, the first couple of dates can be coffee or cocktails. You don't have to put out big bucks to get to meet somebody. And David says, as a side gig outside of my primary career, I'm a life coach. Tends to help a little bit, but I'm sure if I dive too deep too soon by saying that, I probably do, instead of having it be a little more organic. Yeah, yeah, there's where to go with that one? Organic is, in my opinion, is always best, but it's I guess that's really the only way, if it develops naturally. I mean, you can do some online dating and stuff like that, but still, all relationships, I think, need to develop organically, where you just get to know somebody, or you get to know each other, and you need to be crystal clear about what you want, and what your deal breakers are, so that early on, that if you start recognizing that he or she has some of your deal breakers, or even one of your deal breakers, that you can just say, hey, this is great, but I like you, but I don't see this as a good fit for me for a relationship, and then move on. Don't invest a lot of time in getting to know someone. And it doesn't mean you can't get to know someone. They could become very dear friends, but it's not going to be as a romantic relationship. And Addie says, I feel that if it's last minute, it comes off like they had nothing else, or nothing else to do, or perhaps their original date flaked, and again, not a priority. That's a great observation, and it may or may not be true, but that's absolutely the way it feels like, that you're an afterthought, or the woman I really wanted to date backed out on me, and so now, I'll give Addie a call and see if she wants to go. And that's a great observation, Addie. So it's in getting back to my question, when you, depending on how you look at dating, and how you feel about it, is going to determine a lot of the success or failure that you have. If you look at it as fun, then you're more likely to have success in your dates. And the reason being is, and I'm sure David would back me up on this, is you walk in with a positive attitude, even though it may not be a great date, or it may be just a one and done, but you come in with an attitude of um, of okay, I'm going to enjoy myself and have a good time. And as opposed to, oh, I've got to go out on another date. And it's just the subconscious does things. When you're having fun, when you're enjoying yourself, you're going to be your head's going to be up, your shoulders are going to be back, you're going to be breathing differently. When you're looking at it as drudgery, you're more than likely your shoulders are going to be slumped, and your head's going to be tipped a little bit forward, and it just radiates a vibe that the drudgery radiates a vibe that you really don't want to be there. And if you don't want to be there, even if you don't say anything to that nature, your partner's going to sense it. They're going to sense that, yeah, something's just not quite right here. There's not a lot of liveliness. There's not a lot of connectivity. And whenever you get to that point, I mean, it could be a fine date, and maybe he or she would like to see you again. But when you've got that drudgery, it's just like, no, not so much. It's just like when you get to that point. I think Addie said it. When you get to that point, it's time to take a break. And there's nothing wrong with taking a break. We can go great guns for several months at a time, and have a lot of great dates, maybe even meet a few people and date them for a period of time, and then for whatever reason, it's time to move on. And that's okay. That happens. Because what you're looking for ultimately is, you're looking for your soulmate relationship, or your extraordinary relationship. And if you don't see it in the first few weeks, in my opinion, that it's time to move on. If you don't see possibilities of the relationship going any further, don't prolong the agony. Now, that's not to say that you might find somebody and hit it off really well, and things start out great, but that's not to say that as you peel back the layers, as you get to know somebody, that you're not going to find that you're not going to find things that you don't like. Or that you find things that are incompatible. And David says, for me recently, I found that I need to see if they spark joy. That's awesome. That's something that's going to grow on over time, and either has that spark or it doesn't. And if it's and I don't know if it's true for everyone. David, I think that's a good question. And I know there are some relationships that there's a tremendous connection. And one of the things that, David, I'm going to question you on, is it the infatuation? And this is where most people get tripped up, because when we're in a new relationship, everything is neat and smooth and cool and fine in all respects. And then as things progress, the blinders come off, and we start to see the little things that annoy the crap out of us. and so what happens is when we're in the infatuation stage, or the raging hormones, and I'm not talking sexually raging hormones, but we have hormones. We've got oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. All these things are going on in the center of our brain, and it's the same. And relationships, love relationships, trigger the same spot in the brain as drugs and alcohol and other addictive substances, or what is it? the rush that people get from doing exciting stuff, the adrenaline, and all that stuff is going on in our bodies, and it's all below the surface. It's stuff that we don't see, and stuff that we don't necessarily understand. We're having this weird attraction to somebody, and why they don't meet this or they don't meet that, and yet we're still drawn to them like the moth to their the moth light or the mosquito light that's hanging outside the door. And let's see. Oh, hey Nancy, thanks for joining in. Great to have you here. And Glenn says it's been only 5 weeks since the breakup, and I need to take some time for myself. Hurt. Absolutely, and that's part of what I wanted to share today. And it's hey Jacqueline, thanks for joining in. I some stuff scrolled by and I missed you there, and I'll catch up with you here in just a second. It's so important that after you end a relationship that you take some time for yourself, especially if there were a lot of emotions and like I said, a lot of raging hormones going on. You need to step back and move and deal with that thing, recover from this, and before you move on. And one of the things, and Glenn, I'm highly going to recommend this book called How We Love to you. I really want you to get a copy of it and read it or listen to it. It's an awesome book. There may be some clues in there, and one of those is some of us, and I think it's the vacillators. They tend to fall in love really, really quick, and I can do this too. I see. Earlier, I said that I was mostly an avoider, but I also see parts of the vacillator where you fall in love really quick, and then the first sign of trouble, you're gone, or you're pushing them back and moving away. So it's so that I think that would be a a really good read for you, Glenn. So hopefully you'll pick it up. They're and it's written for couples, but it's a great read just to figure out who we are, and it may help you work with people with women that you date in the future. And let's see, Jacqueline. No, I'm sorry, folks. I'm just bouncing back to Jacqueline. I just caught her comment. No, I'm actually in Oklahoma right now. So I've been in Oklahoma for about the last 4 months. So. And David says, Rick, you are so correct. What's left over once the honeymoon is done? Yeah, it's the and what you once that honeymoon period or that the infatuation wears off, and science studies have shown that infatuation can last up to 2 years. So you can be in this honeymoon phase, and then all of a sudden, when the honeymoon wears off or the infatuation wears off, you're sitting back and saying, "Holy crap! What did I just do?" And maybe you've already gotten married, and then all of a sudden a lot of the excitement, a lot of the joy is gone in the relationship, and that's when you have to start doing the real work. And unfortunately, a lot of folks jump into a marriage in that short a time without really spending time getting to know their partner. And that's why, and David, that's one of the reasons. I don't know how long you've followed me, but one of the things that I harp on regularly is to develop a must-have list and your deal breaker list, so that you can step back from the infatuation and raging hormones and say, does she have this? Does she have that? Does she have everything that I'm looking for? And if she doesn't, it's okay. but she's not going to be your extraordinary mate, at least not in my opinion. Or if she has even just one of your deal breakers, it's time to move on, because these are, to be very brief about it, most of you have heard this, but it's your must-haves are non-negotiable items. There are things that would be nice to have. It would be nice to have somebody in your life to have a partner that makes $1 million a year. Okay. And some people, that's a must-have. One woman that I had a coaching session with said she wouldn't marry anyone that didn't have their PhD. Okay, well, that limited to some extent where she could look, and she ended up moving to Texas and finding somebody, but it wasn't. She didn't find him in Kansas City. So everybody has their own must-haves. Everybody has their own list of deal breakers, and no list is correct, and no list is wrong. It's whatever you want. And again, don't confuse your must-haves with would-be nice-to-haves. The would-be nice-to-haves are things that you can do without. Again, $1 million a year. You may not have to drive that Porsche next year. Whatever it is. But it's your must-haves are defined as non-negotiable. If you have a list of 20 must-haves and she has 19, what do? The first words out of my mouth would be next. And it's that simple, because somewhere down the line, if you take 19 out of 20, you are settling. And somewhere down the line, may not be this year, next year, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years down the road, you're going to say, I really wanted this part of this in my relationship. So I'm a firm believer in not settling. Let's see. Let's see who. Hey Jessica, thanks for joining in. I'm just scrolling through comments here just to make sure I'm caught up to date. David says, trying to find the ability to compromise at my age is my new work at the computer related. At the computer related to, yeah, and at our age, and I'm saying our age. I'm 65. I don't know how many of you are that old, or that some of you may be a couple of years older. A lot of you are a lot younger. So compromise. When we get to this age, I'm not sure that there's a lot of compromise. You can compromise on where you squeeze the toothpaste, where you go for dinner, but to compromise on what's important to you, I think for me, and what I recommend to clients is a no-go. When you compromise, what you're doing, in my opinion, is settling. And David said, just read the book 8 Dates, and you'll have to shoot me a message, David, and tell me what. I haven't read that one yet, so I'd like to know what it's about. Nancy said, I know you're right, but that's tough, and it is, Nancy, and it is not easy to walk away from even a good relationship. It's much easier to walk away from someone that's and I'm not saying as a person, but as a match, as a mediocre match. There are some things that you might just love about this person, but over here is a pile of grief that's you have to deal with, and it just takes all the fun out of it. And my experience is that you have to take as many of the roadblocks out of your way in a relationship to make it work. When you start stacking up roadblocks, whether it's they have one or more of your deal breakers, or they don't have all of your must-haves, or you're not on the same page spiritually, or you have such diverse interests, and that's not to say that you can't learn to enjoy each other's interests. But when one just flat out says, no, I'm not doing that, you're on your own, it takes a lot of the fun out of being a couple. And Glenn says it's hard to trust someone again if you find they were cheating on you. Oh, absolutely. When you've been cheated on, Glenn, I it takes a much bigger person than me to trust that person again. And that's, I mean, that in it, if you're married, if you're in that relationship already, it's I think that's, from a scriptural standpoint, you have to you have to work on that marriage. But then again, there's that trust, and they have to jump through a lot of hoops to even begin to regain that trust. Excuse me. I'm not doing a plug for QT. That's just the big glass I had, and I've got some iced tea going there and some lemonade, and so the nectar of the nectar of Arnold Palmer, because that's what that is. And it's an Arnold Palmer. So there's so many things that come into play in trying to find that right person. There's so many moving parts to a relationship that we have to be careful and make sure that, and these are things that we're never taught. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to bang the mic. These are things that we're never taught. They're things that for me, I've had to study. I've had to learn the hard way. I've had to hit my head against the wall, I don't know how many times, and it takes time. And so what the whole purpose of Monday Mastery and my book Dating Backward and my new project is all about. It's about helping you make dating simple. And it's not easy. I'm not going to go that far. Dating can be simple, but it's not always easy, because going and getting the dates, there are so many aspects. Finding, going through the first date, that's one of the things that personally I just despise about dating is or leaving a relationship and having to start over. It's tough, and when you leave a relationship, and Glenn, I'm going to address this to you. You do have to take some time. You have to clear your head. You have to get in the right mindset, and it's because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up sabotaging yourself. You'll end up dragging negativity from your last relationship into the new relationship, or a new relationship, or a new dating experience. And anytime you do that, you're throwing out an anchor and sticking yourself in in one spot. You may be able to move a little bit, but if you've ever anchored out on a boat, you know that the boat will swing a little bit back and forth due to the wind, but it's not moving. And so in order for you to be able to move forward, you can't be anchored to the ground. You can't be anchored anywhere. You have to be you have to be able to move and to move freely. And anytime you have this baggage or this anchor holding you back, it just makes dating and life in general tough. So it's when you start or when you leave a relationship, you just need to take time to clear your head, to move, to recover from the hurts of this past relationship. And if you move on too quickly, you're carrying that baggage. You run the risk of becoming a serial monogamous. You jump from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, without really healing from the last relationship. And all of this stuff starts to compound and keep building. And it's just too much. And pretty soon the women or the guys that you date, depending on who this applies, well, it applies to everybody, but they start to recognize this baggage, and you can recognize it too if a lot of your thoughts when you're with somebody new drift back to your ex. Oh my gosh, my ex did that, or you discover a lot of triggers, a lot of emotional triggers, and that can cause you to react adversely, and the new person has no clue what they did. They had no clue that what they said, or how they touched you, or whatever it was, or whatever action, whether it's leaving dishes in the sink, or they have no idea how they triggered you. So, and part of being mature as a dater is to recognize that when something triggers you, just stop. Don't you might feel yourself getting angry, but just stop and start thinking about, why am I getting angry? And then you move on to sharing what just happened. And that is it's almost a cathartic experience that, oh, this is what happened. Let's avoid doing this. Can you help me do this? Or, and just say, I'm not angry at you. You just triggered an emotion and you had no idea you were doing it. And this is where it came from. This is why it was triggered. And, I dated a woman several years ago, and it wasn't long after my dad and I had a major blow up. For those of you that have been around a while, you know that I grew up being called stupid and an idiot until I was 52 years old. And so she said something about being stupid, and I just looked at her and I shared my story with her. And she had no idea. And the look on her face as I shared my story was just priceless. She says, Rick, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. So, for me at the time, stupid and an idiot were trigger words. And I didn't get mad at her. I just said, hey, stop. Because I could feel myself getting angry. And I said, nope, we got to stop the conversation right here. So that's what you do. Let me get caught up. You're welcome, Glenn. And let me get caught up here. Nancy, doesn't it all boil down to how committed both are in a relationship? To a certain extent, Nancy, yes. But you can be committed to the wrong relationship. And if you're too committed to the wrong relationship, if you've settled somewhere along the way, it just makes the relationship that much tougher. And even in the most extraordinary relationships, you're still going to have problems. So yes, you have to have some commitment. You have to have a lot of commitment. But where I see most people running into problems is they're committed to the wrong relationships. They're not paying attention to all of the red flags or all of the issues that are making them crazy. Now, some improvements in communication can go a long way to resolving a lot of those issues, but there are certain relationships that you just have no business being in. And so there's a fine line you have to walk there. Are you trying to be committed to a less than extraordinary relationship, or maybe even a toxic relationship? So there's a fine line there, but I truly believe that that we can be overcommitted to the wrong relationships. So I hope that helps, Nancy. Teresa says, "Well, you have to match and not pretend to just hang in there because you're tired of being alone." Absolutely, that's an awesome observation, and that goes back to what I was talking about settling. You can. It's so easy to settle and to get stuck in a relationship just because you don't want to be alone, and that's another component that I off on another rabbit hole. I truly believe you have to get yourself to a point where you're comfortable being alone, that you can tell yourself and be comfortable saying it and believe it, that I'm good with someone and I'm good without someone. When you put yourself in that position, when you're in that mindset, then it doesn't make any difference. If you find someone, great. If you don't, okay. We all want to be with someone ultimately, but if that's not God's wish, then so be it. But that doesn't mean you can't keep looking. And when you're in that mindset, it's it puts you in the driver's seat, so to speak. You are in the position of power in dating then, because you can say yes, you can say no. You're not feeling pressured to say yes to anyone. And David says, the conversation I had to have with the point that you were making is about being comfortable being alone. You nailed it. Well, that's thank you. I firmly believe that that's a huge part of it. You need to ask yourself, do I mind alone or being stuck with a person who is not for you? And that's exactly right, Teresa. That's what I was just saying is it's and you see the saying, it's far better to be alone than to be stuck in a relationship that you're unhappy with. And when I was married, the last several years of my marriage, I was convinced that I was going to be stuck in a mediocre marriage for the rest of my life. I didn't intend to get divorced, but things happened, and it was just I recognized that I couldn't stay there anymore. And I'm sure that's the way it worked out for most of you. Let's see. Addie says, but I feel if we are triggering someone into a bad emotion, perhaps we're not a good match. I don't want to have to change. Well, Addie, and you raise an interesting point, and if you're, I I just had just this bizarre picture. I guess if you're triggering someone's bad emotions by chasing them around the house with a claw hammer, trying to beat the crap out of them, and you don't want to change, well, then I guess there may be a problem there. But I think there are things. Again, like I said, I grew up being called stupid and an idiot, and the lady I was dating at the time said, "Well, that was something about something." She said something to the effect, "Well, that was really stupid of you." And it was just like that word was a trigger for me. But I shared it with her, and it's not that she had to change. It's just we watched our vocabulary, and it's not that the word never came up again, and it was just how the word was used. So I think there are things like that. There was another incident with the same woman and I'm sure that you've probably heard this, but she had big open living room kitchen, and she was facing away from me, and she paused, and I walked out of the room, and she started talking again, and that was a trigger for me. It just irritated me because my ex-wife would do that. She'd keep talking. I'd say, "I've got to leave the room. I've got to go use the restroom, whatever," and she would just keep talking. She wouldn't listen, and it got to the point that I just gave up in frustration. I said, okay, I didn't hear, I walked back in, I didn't hear a word you said. And it's those types of triggers. No, if Addie, if they're triggering something that causes them to be violent, or you said something that causes them to be violent, that's a relationship I would not hang around in. But if it's just simply anger or frustration or just normal emotions, uh, you know. I heard a I heard a song the other day that reminded me of my dad, and it just almost brought me to tears because it brought back some good memories. But that was also a trigger. So that's, don't necessarily confuse triggers that they're necessarily a bad thing. They're just things that we have to recognize, or uh, we we have to learn to recognize in ourselves and help our partners recognize those when that stuff happens. Um, let's see if I get this one. And then Addie says, I feel if bring that previous relationship issues into the new one, it may not be fair to the new partner. Absolutely, that's right. That's why it's best to take time for yourself between relationships. That's absolutely right. Hey, Terry, thanks for joining in. Terry says, I know too many in the widowed world that don't think about must-haves. They say they will know when they meet him. And that is so true. But here's where infatuation gets in the way. I'm sorry, I'll finish reading. Then they stay in a relationship long past knowing they aren't with the someone that fits their needs. It's so sad. Absolutely. And Terry, that's what I'm talking about. And that's why it's so important to have that must-have list, because you can step back from the infatuation and the raging hormones. And that's what that's what we talked about earlier is it puts blinders on you. And once the infatuation wears off, all the hormones have started settling down, and it's like you wake up and it's, holy crap, what did I just do? And so I totally get it. And invite those friends to come and watch on Mondays. And Glenn says, so glad I got to hear you tonight. You're so helpful. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to try to wrap these comments up, and then I've got I want to share my news with you, because we're getting to the top of the hour, and I was hoping to actually start this about 20 minutes ago. Anyway, Teresa says, the best part about dating is the wrong person. You learn about what you don't want. That's a great observation. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself, your needs, and maybe you need to still work on yourself. Great observation, Teresa. You're dead on. You're dead on. Hey, Lonnie, thanks for joining in. Great weather in Nashville. Great to see you. Yeah, well, I'm glad you've got great weather. We've had storms all day, rain and thunderstorms. And Teresa says, I've learned that you can't change anyone. If you think you will change a man, or if you love him and want to change yourself, great. But no human can change another. Only God can when they want to change. Absolutely. Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for joining in. I'm going to catch you here at the bottom. Can a person be too independent? Well, that depends on your definition of too independent. And if it means that you just avoid relationships, or don't want relationships, or let's see, if you're doing things to push relationships away on the one hand, and saying, you're I can't show you this, but you're holding people away. Say, I really want a relationship, but you're keeping everybody at arm's length. And yeah, you might be a little too independent, but I totally believe that we all should be independent, is that we can live on our own. We can enjoy our singleness. but we can still have that desire and to be in a relationship, and with that desire, you have to participate in the dating, in the dating process. If you're independent, if your idea of independent is not having to go out on a date, or not being willing to ask somebody out on a date, or not willing to ask someone to go for coffee or cocktails, then yeah, you may be too independent, or you may be you're limiting your own possibilities. So uh, and Teresa, very quickly, Teresa says, I have a lot of practice dating the wrong ones. We all do. That's part of it. Because if you found the right one, you'd be with him. I'd be with her. It's the same thing. And this is, Teresa, this is a numbers game. We won't know the right one until we're there. And that just takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of effort. And it's not always fun. And David says, are you being tolerated or celebrated? Awesome. That's a great question. That's a great question to ask yourselves when you're in a relationship. If you're not being celebrated, if you don't feel that, or if you feel that you're only being tolerated, then you're probably not in the right relationship. You should be celebrated. You should be, and as you should be celebrating them. You should. Each of us needs to enhance the other, and if we're not enhancing each other, then it's not a great relationship. Well, and you're welcome, Elizabeth. And how do you find the right one? It's by dating a lot of people. It's by knowing what you want. It's by knowing what your deal breakers are. It's recognizing when you have when you're developing an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional, and a physical connection. I firmly believe that you should be speaking similar love languages. And then there's that chemistry that kind of flows through the whole thing, that kind of binds everybody together. And it's and again, it goes back to the hormones. It goes back to the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine. Just making sure that you're developing that connection chemically, and that's really mostly what the chemistry is all about. It literally is chemistry, and it's going on up here, right in the middle of our brains. So anyway. Now, I want to take some time. I appreciate you all for the questions and the input and the comments. It was awesome tonight. And tonight I want to share with you what I've been doing in the background for the last 8-10 weeks, plus or minus. I've been developing an online course on dating and relationship. It's about dating. It's not really about the relationship part, but it's about how to become a better dater. And one of the aspects of this, and I take you right from the very basics, and some of what we've talked about. I've taken a lot of the concepts from my book. I've taken a lot of things that I've learned since I've written the book, and combined all these things for a course. And if you do a one module a week, there's 5 modules. It takes about 5 weeks to go through. There's 3 or 4 or 5 modules or lessons in each module, and it's really going to be an awesome course. And it covers everything from starting right from the beginning. If you're divorced or widowed, taking time, or even broken up from a long-term relationship. It's about taking time to heal from that relationship and recover. It's taking time for yourself to grow as a person. And we talk about the must-have lists, the 4 cornerstones of great relationships, the love languages. And then I talk about a lot of other things, including where to look. And I've got about 80% of the lessons written so far, and hopefully I'll be wrapping the rest of those lessons up this week and then start recording. And then ideally, I thought I could have all of this done in a month, but there's been technology issues. Using a DSLR camera and connecting the audio. And there's just been so many things in the background, that have just kicked my butt. And what I and it's just taken so much longer than I ever anticipated. But the great part is I'm getting to be about this close. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm looking for some beta testers, and I'm looking for 25 to 30 beta testers that would love to go through the course and walk through it. And then we'll do a weekly Zoom call. And the Zoom calls are not mandatory, but they'd be very helpful, because then we can walk through the course and you can give me feedback and I can give you feedback on your questions. And very much like we're doing here, but it's going to be more of a group coaching, more of a group a small group setting where we're all live and we can all talk to each other. So if you would like to participate in that, shoot me an email. Now, I am going to tell you that I'm going to charge for the course. The regular price for the course is going to be $247, but for my beta testers, you're going to get an 80% discount, so it's going to be $47. And the reason I'm charging that is because when you have some skin in the game, you're going to follow through. To get something for free, and I've even taken things for free and said, yeah, I'll do it, and I never follow through. So I want you to have a little bit of commitment and to participate. But again, you're going to get the course and all the materials that go along with it, and you critique that. And the only thing that I ask from you at the end is to write a critique on the course, or if you thought it's a great course, write a testimonial, and we'll go from there. But the course itself will actually be live in about 30 days, and so and I'll remind you guys of this. As we go over the next couple of weeks, I'll keep you posted on the progress. But anybody that's interested, and it's when you see the depths of the course, there's you can read my book and get some of it. But again, there's a lot of stuff that I picked up, even from you guys, some of the conversations that we've had that I've learned from, and so the purpose of this next 30 days, and it'll take us about 30 days or 5 weeks to go through. And each week we'll have a conference call, and probably in the evening when we can all get together, or most of us can get together, and just go through the lessons and see what you learn, see what questions you have, and then if there's anything that I need to know about the process, or something that I said, or something I didn't say, or something you'd like to see in it, let me know, and then I can tweak it. So with that, I truly appreciate it that you all were here today. Hey, Susan, thanks for joining in. Susan says, sorry I tuned in late. I have to start it from the beginning. Thank you, Rick. It's great to have you back. Oh, thank you so much, Susan. It's been great to be here. But to wrap that up, again, if you're interested in being a beta tester for me, I would love to have you guys, especially you guys here. And I'll announce this through my other platforms through my email list and through my meetup group to find 25 or 30 beta testers. But it's a great opportunity to go through this course, get in on the ground level, and as it's going to be a lifetime course. That anytime there's updates, you'll get the updates, and anything that I do new within that course will be yours, and you'll participate. So if you guys are interested, let me know. Shoot me a test or a text, a text or an email, or shoot me through Messenger, and we'll get you connected. We'll get you set up. So anyway, thank you everyone. It's been a great evening. It's great to be back. I've had fun with you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've gotten some information out of it. And I will see you all next Monday right here on Monday Mastery. I love you guys. Thanks for joining in.